Have you ever had that feeling? Sitting down with an important task, knowing full well that you should do it right away, but then you pull out your phone, watch a short video, scroll through a few more articles, and voila, the day is gone as if it never started? If you're nodding your head, then this video is for you. There is a truth that few people dare to admit. Most of the things we procrastinate on are not because we don't know how to do them. It's not because I'm too busy, but it's because I'm afraid to start. I'm afraid to face myself. I'm afraid I'm not good enough. We fear failure, and worse, we fear that if we do not succeed, what excuse will we have left? But let me say this clearly. You're not lazy. You're just procrastinating, a silent thief. Best at making us believe, I can do it tomorrow. Procrastination is a subtle form of self-sabotage. It is not the same as laziness, for laziness is the outright refusal to act. Procrastination is more dangerous. It makes us feel like we're going to do something, but we never get started. You know you need to exercise, learn a new skill, expand your network, finish that unfinished project, but you don't do it. And every day that passes, you lose a part of your faith in yourself. Not because you are not capable, but because you are used to betraying your own promises. Do you remember the last time you accomplished something and felt really proud? That feeling, the joy, the confidence, the peace of mind doesn't come from achievement. It comes from action. You feel strongest when you keep your word to yourself. And the most dangerous thing about procrastination is not missing the deadline. It's that you gradually lose honor with yourself. Today's video isn't just about telling you that procrastination is a problem. You already know that. But I'm going to walk you through 9 specific, practical, and incredibly easy to apply ways you can stop procrastinating today. They don't require you to change your entire life. They don't require you to become a completely new person. They only require you to take one small step, repeated every day. Because self-improvement doesn't come from radical change. It comes from beating procrastination today, then doing it again tomorrow. Have you noticed that every time you say, I have to do this, I have to do that, your body reacts as if it is being forced? The feeling of tiredness, reluctance, heaviness appears even before you start doing it. And so you procrastinate, not because you don't have time, but because you are resisting the very thing you are about to do. There's a small difference that makes a big difference. Instead of saying, I have to, say, I choose to. It sounds simple, but the change is more than just words. It's a complete shift in mindset. When you say, I choose to wake up early every day, instead of, I have to wake up early, you're giving yourself back control. It's no longer an obligation. It's a choice, an action that comes from autonomy, not from compulsion. I used to get stuck for long periods of time because of those musts. I have to exercise. I have to write. I have to call my family. Each one felt like a punishment. But when I started to change the way I phrased it, I choose to exercise because I want to be healthy. I choose to write because I want to share what I believe is valuable. It felt a lot easier. Instead of feeling like I was being dragged through a to-do list, I began to feel like I was taking control of my life. The question is, why is choice so powerful? Because when you choose, you take responsibility. You no longer blame your job. your circumstances, or someone else for forcing you to do something. You're doing it because you have a reason, because it's important to you. And that's when you start to feel motivated from within, without someone reminding you. Without a deadline looming over your head. Just by changing one sentence in your head, you begin to change your emotions, then your actions, then your life. Try something simple today. Write down 3 things you often say, "I must," and turn them into, "I choose to." Read them back honestly. If you can't choose, maybe it's not important to you, or you need a clearer reason to act. But if you can see that it's truly your choice, then you've gone a long way toward overcoming procrastination. You don't have to do anything, but you can choose to do something that makes you better every day. And that power of choice is where your inner power is born. One of the biggest reasons we procrastinate isn't because it's too hard. It's because it's too vague. When you say, "I need to learn English," or "I have to finish this presentation," your brain doesn't know where to start. It only sees a vague, shapeless mass, and so it chooses to back off. To procrastinate, not because you don't have the ability, but because you haven't figured out what the first step is. I used to sit in front of my laptop for hours, staring at the headline, start writing a project plan. Every time I saw that line, my brain went numb, until I changed it to a single task. Write a 3-point introduction in 5 minutes. Right then, I started writing, and then I added 3 more lines, and then a few more paragraphs. Looking back, I had accomplished more than I expected. But the most important thing is, I started. The key is to break the action down to the point where you can't help but do it. The clearer and easier something is to do, the less resistance you'll have. Try saying, "I open Duolingo and learn 5 words in 2 minutes," rather than, "I have to learn English." The 2 sentences sound different, and the way your brain responds is very different. We often think that to change our lives, we have to take one big action. But the truth is, every big change starts with one small action. Repeat it. That's why the first 2-minute rule is so effective. You don't have to commit to reading 30 pages a day. Just say, "I'm going to open this book and read the first paragraph." That's the start. And once you start, you almost always keep going a little further. You can apply this rule to anything. Don't feel like exercising? Just put on your shoes and stand up for 5 minutes to stretch. Don't want to clean your room? Just pack 3 items. Don't want to write a report? Open the document and type a headline first. The most important thing is not how much you do, but that you overcome the initial resistance. Once you learn to break things down to the point where you can't refuse, you'll realize action is not as scary as you think, and procrastination has no place to stay. Just start small, and then you'll find yourself doing bigger things than ever. One of the biggest traps that causes you to procrastinate is not the work itself, but when you do it, select to begin, or rather not select. Think about it. How many times a day have you told yourself, "I'll do it when I have time," or "I'll think about it later"? And how many of those times that later never comes? We procrastinate not because we're lazy, but because we let things hang in the balance. And you know what I mean. The more uncertain something is, the more likely it is to be forgotten. When you don't have a clear time to start, Your brain doesn't prioritize it. It gives way to something easier, more fun, or more familiar. The solution is simple. Schedule your actions like you would an important appointment. Don't say, "I'm going to work out today." Say, "At 6:30 a.m., I'm going to do a 10-minute plank." Don't say, "I'm going to write a report today." Say, "Between 9 and 9:30, I'm going to sit down and write my introduction." Clarity creates commitment, and commitment beats procrastination. I remember a time when I was really stuck on writing new content. I kept thinking, I'll write when I feel inspired. But when does inspiration come? I waited and waited until I tried something simple. I set an appointment for 7 a.m. every day, no writing required. Just open my laptop and type anything for 20 minutes. The magic was, when I showed up on time, inspiration learned to come on time too. And you can go further by applying an extremely effective tool. Habit stacking. Attach the new habit to an existing action. For example, if you already have a habit of brushing your teeth in the morning, then after brushing your teeth, you sit down and meditate for 3 minutes. Or after making coffee, you open a book and read 2 pages. This attachment will create a smoother, less resistant, and more consistent chain of actions. We don't need to be disciplined like a machine. But if you want to take action every day without struggling with procrastination, start by choosing a specific time. Don't let the important thing depend on your mood. Give it a permanent place in your schedule. Because a time-bound action is always more powerful than a vague promise. Oh. Here's an interesting thing that few people talk about. A lot of the times you procrastinate, it's not because you lack motivation, nor because you don't know it's important. It's simply because your environment is working against you. Imagine you're sitting down to work. There's a pile of papers in front of you, a computer screen with YouTube open, and a phone with dozens of unread notifications nearby. In that situation, would you need extraordinary willpower to focus? Yes, but the reality is, you shouldn't rely on willpower. Because willpower is a limited resource, and the environment is a constant influence. If you have to resist temptation every 5 minutes, you will quickly run out of mental strength. But if you design your environment to resist less, do more, you won't have to try so hard. It will become much easier and more natural. For example, if you want to focus on work, leave your phone in another room. Turn off notifications for unnecessary apps. Put your screen in full screen mode to eliminate distracting tabs. And remember, it's easier to avoid temptation than to resist it when it's right in front of you. Another thing you can do today: minimize small decisions by having everything you need ready in advance. Want to wake up early to exercise? Don't wait until the morning to find your sneakers or pick out your outfit. Have your shoes by your bed. Have a water bottle, a towel, and an alarm clock. When everything is ready, you'll have no excuse to be lazy. I personally try this with content writing. Before I go to bed, I always have my laptop on the corner of my desk. Open the document I need to write, and write down the first headline. And the next morning, I just sit down and start. I don't need to be excited. I don't need motivation. I just keep going. You don't have to be a self-disciplined person. You just need to know that the right environment can create the right person. And if you're consistently failing to stick to a habit, maybe the problem isn't you. it's how you're organizing the world around you. Change doesn't begin with trying. It begins with making trying easier. There is a very subtle form of procrastination that many people don't realize. Planning in your head. Sounds logical, right? You think about what you need to do. You repeat it over and over in your mind. I have to submit a report. I need to call a client. I will study English tonight. And you feel like you are getting something done. But in fact, you haven't started. You are just creating an illusion of being busy. It is procrastination disguised as organization. The truth is, what is not written has no clear shape. And what has no shape creates no action. The more you keep things in your head, the more likely you are to feel overwhelmed. But when you write them down, specifically, clearly, in affirmative sentences, you set the stage for real action to begin. Instead of saying, I need to finish my presentation slides. Write, tonight, at 8 o'clock, I will open my laptop and finish the first 5 slides in 45 minutes. With just one sentence, you have identified when, what, where and how long. See? Writing it down cuts through the uncertainty. It forces you to make a commitment. Instead of just hanging around thinking, I'll do it later. Plus, when you read what you've written, your brain sees it as a formal task to complete, not just a vague promise in your head. I used to be a head person. I thought I was good at managing my work. But the more I had to do, the more I forgot, the more stressed I became. And in the end, nothing got done. Until I tried writing down each task at a specific time of day. No need to be long-winded. Just a few firm statements. It completely changed my productivity. I saw clearly what I needed to do. And I acted faster and more clearly. Writing down a plan not only makes it easier to get started, it also helps you feel more in control. Instead of being dragged along by the task, you start to control it. Try this today. Grab a piece of paper or open a notepad in your phone and write down a specific sentence of what you will do, when, for how long. See how that impacts your life. How you act. Action begins with clarity, and clarity begins with the words you choose to write. We often think that to start doing something, we need to feel inspired. We need to feel ready. We need to feel in a good mood. But the truth is, that rarely happens. One of the most brutal yet important truths I've ever learned is this. Inspiration doesn't come before action. It comes after. If you wait until you feel excited to start working, you'll be waiting a long time. Maybe a day, maybe a year, maybe forever. Think about the last time you exercised without feeling like it, but felt energized afterward, or the time you started writing in a state of confusion. And then gradually the ideas began to flow. It was the action that created the flow, not the initial emotion. We've become accustomed to avoiding unpleasant feelings, tiredness, stress, laziness, disorientation. But if you pay attention, those feelings aren't a reason to stop. They're a sign that you should do something to change your state. Instead of saying, I'm so stressed I can't work, say, I'm stressed, so I need to do something small to regain control. I've used this on my most chaotic days. When my mind is in turmoil, I don't force myself to think positively. I simply open my laptop and write down the first few lines. It doesn't matter what. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just start. And once I start, I regain clarity, focus, and sometimes inspiration. Don't wait for your emotions to settle before you act. Because the truth is, it's action that stabilizes your emotions. You don't have to be strong all at once. You just have to choose to do one small thing, even when you're feeling bad. Even when you feel like everything is against you. Because if you can take action when you least want to, that's when you start taking back control of your life. Discomfort is not the enemy. It is a signal, a bell that tells you it is time to do something, not to run away from the feeling, but to move beyond it. One of the reasons we fail to stick to positive habits is because we don't feel rewarded after completing them. We just move from one task to the next, like a machine. Or worse, we blame ourselves for procrastinating, instead of acknowledging what we've just overcome. But your brain doesn't work on a done is done basis. It needs rewards. It needs recognition. That's nature's way of forming long-term habits. Think back to when you were a kid. Every time you did something right, adults would clap, give you candy, or simply praise you with a proud look. It was those little feedbacks that made you want to keep doing the same thing. As an adult, no one praises you anymore. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't reward yourself. After each task you complete, whether it's a small one like washing the dishes, writing an important email, or exercising for 10 minutes, give yourself a small reward. It could be a cup of hot tea, 5 minutes of lying down listening to your favorite music, or simply standing up and taking a deep breath and looking out the window. Those little rewards aren't indulgences. They're your way of telling your brain, hey, this is worth doing. Keep doing it. And when your brain gets that signal often enough, it automatically creates a loop of action, reward, action. Personally, I used to think that I should be tough, that I shouldn't reward myself because working is a responsibility. But you know what happened? I gradually felt drained of energy, saw everything as an obligation, and then started procrastinating. We don't need big rewards. We just need to feel that our efforts are recognized, even if it's from ourselves. And just as importantly, stop beating yourself up every time you procrastinate. Blaming yourself is never motivating. It only makes you feel like a failure, and makes you less likely to take action next time. Instead of saying, I feel bad for procrastinating for 2 hours, say, I procrastinated, but now I'm starting again. And that deserves recognition. Reward yourself not because you are excellent, but because you are making progress. Remember, you don't have to be perfect, but you do need to be encouraged as a human being, not as a machine. We pressure ourselves to always be productive, always working, always focused, always moving forward. But the truth is, no one can live like that forever. You're human. You're going to have times when you're tired, times when you want to be lazy, times when you just don't want to do anything. And that doesn't make you weak. It makes you normal. Here's the thing. If you don't schedule laziness, it will sneak up on you at any time. When you're supposed to be working, when you need to be focused, when a deadline is looming, it comes unexpectedly, without warning, and often with dire consequences. So instead of trying to fight laziness with iron discipline, make room for it in your schedule. Create legal lazy hours. For example, 30 minutes every night where you can lie around scrolling through TikTok, playing games, watching comedy videos, or even just staring at the ceiling. It may seem counterintuitive, but scheduling downtime helps you feel in control of your life, rather than letting your emotions dictate your life. When you know that, "I'll be off by 8 p.m., you're less likely to be tempted to do it at 3 p.m. and you procrastinate less during your actual work hours. I tried this after a long period of being caught in a cycle of work, stress, mindless browsing, and then blaming myself. It felt terrible. I always felt like I wasn't doing enough, and I was living in a state of lack of control. But when I tried setting aside 30 minutes each evening to be legally lazy, everything changed. I worked more focused, because I knew I would get a break afterward, and without feeling guilty. Most importantly, you need to learn to be strategically lazy. Make breaks a reward, a necessary stop after you've completed a task. Don't feel guilty about watching a funny video, playing a game, or lying around mindlessly. Let it be a reward, not a way to avoid doing something you need to do. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to know how to manage yourself, both at work and at rest. And one of the smartest ways to stay resilient in the long run is to allow yourself time off, with a plan. Because real effectiveness does not come from working continuously, but from taking breaks at the right time to continue for a long time. We often think that to change who we are, we need a big push, an event, a special inspiration. But the reality is different. You are not defined by rare moments of brilliance, but by the small actions you take every day, especially when no one is watching. Do you wake up on time? It's not just about sticking to a schedule. It's about sending a message to yourself. I keep my word. You choose to exercise even though it's cold or you're tired. You're reinforcing the belief that, "I'm not a quitter." Do you write down 3 important things every morning and complete them? You are building a new version of yourself, stronger, more determined, more self-reliant. Every action you choose, no matter how small, is a vote for the person you are becoming. I used to be someone who lived on inspiration, waiting for a good day, waiting for a good mood, waiting for the motivation to start writing, to start exercising, to start living with discipline. But you know what happens when you live like that? You wait forever. Inspiration comes and goes, but identity, who you want to become, will stay if you work towards it every day. Instead of asking, "Am I in the mood today?" ask, "Who am I building through this action?" You don't have to become extraordinary overnight, but you do have to be brave enough to refuse to live as the same old version of yourself. If you've been saying things like, "I'm a procrastinator," "I'm not disciplined enough," "I can't stick to my routine," now is the time to change that. Not with a big statement, but with a small action today. The first act doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be genuine. You write a line. You take a 5-minute walk. You reject a tempting choice. They are all ways of telling yourself, "I am not the same person I was yesterday. I am changing, and I mean it." Because in the end, real change doesn't come from how many books you read or how many inspirational videos you listen to. It comes from acting like you deserve a better version of yourself, and never looking back. You've probably heard a lot of advice about how to become a better version of yourself. Do more, work harder, change your mindset, change your lifestyle. But I'm going to tell you the opposite. You don't have to do everything. You just have to do one thing every day. and do it consistently. Growth doesn't come from giant leaps. It doesn't come from explosive, inspirational moments. It comes from the small things you have the courage to do when no one is watching, when no one is clapping, when no one is cheering. It's just you and your consistency. Today, if you simply stop procrastinating on something you've been avoiding, you've won. And if you can repeat that tomorrow, you will be further ahead than 90% of people who are still waiting for inspiration. You don't need to be motivated to get started. In fact, if you wait until you feel ready, you may never get started at all. Motivation is an afterthought. It is created by action, not a prerequisite for action. You may be tired. You may not be ready. You may doubt yourself. But if you can get up and do just one small thing, you're stepping out of the shadow of procrastination. And that's worth recognizing. Pick one of the 9 ways you just heard in this video. Just one. And apply it today. No need to be perfect. No need to do much. Just do it. Because you are creating a movement, and every big change starts with a small movement. Repeated long enough, life doesn't require you to be perfect from the start. It just requires you to be brave enough not to stop. And if you're listening this far, you're probably ready to never go back to being the same person again. If you feel like this video touches something inside you, a forgotten corner, a desire for change, don't let it just stay emotional. Leave a comment below. Let me know which of the 9 ways you will take action today to start changing yourself. We won't go it alone. We will take action together, a little bit each day. And if you want to keep getting more videos that help you become stronger, more disciplined, and live your best life, subscribe to the channel. Not only will it help you never miss new content, it will also help the YouTube algorithm get this video in front of more people who need it, like you right now. Finally, if you find this video empowering, please share it with a friend. Because of a small action you took today, could be the start of a big journey in someone else's life. Thanks for listening. See you in the next video, where we continue to improve ourselves, one small action at a time.